Based on what you're probably hearing in the news about home prices, you might be worried that they're starting to fall. But here's the thing, the headlines aren't giving you the full story. Hi, I'm Marilee Wolf with Compass Real Estate in the greater Philadelphia area. And I get pretty peeved when I see scary headlines and misinformation out there about the housing market. So if we look at the national data for 2023, home prices actually showed positive growth for the year. Now, while this varies from market to market, and while there are some months with slight declines nationally, those were the exception, not the rule. The overarching story is that prices went up last year, not down. So let's dive into the data to set the record straight. 2023 was the return to more normal home price growth year. If anything, last year marked a return to more normal home price appreciation. And to prove it, here's what usually happens in residential real estate. In the housing market, there are predictable ebbs and flows that take place each year, and that's called seasonality. It goes like this. Spring is the peak home buying season when the market is the most active. That activity is usually still pretty strong in the summer, but then it starts to wane toward the end of the year. Home prices follow that path of seasonality because prices grow the most when there's the highest demand. Let's take a look at a graph here based on data from Price Schiller, which is the leading measure of residential real estate pricing. And it's going to show how this pattern played out in home prices from 1973 all the way through to 2022. As this data shows, for nearly 50 years, home prices match typical market seasonality. At the beginning of the year, home prices grow more moderately. That's because the market is less active, as fewer people are going to move in January and February. Then as the market transitions into the peak home buying season in the spring, activity starts to ramp up. That means home prices do too. Then as fall and winter approach, activity eases and prices grow, just at a slower rate. Now, let's layer that data that's come out for 2023 so far, shown in the green, on the top of that long-term trend, still shown in the blue. That way, it's easy to see how 2023 compares. As the graph shows, moving through the year in 2023, the level of appreciation fell more in line with the long-term trend for what usually happens in the housing market. You can see that in how close the green bars come to matching the blue bars in the later part of the year. But the headlines only really focus on the two bars outlined in red. Here's the context you may not have gotten that can really put those two bars into perspective. The long-term trend shows it's normal for home prices to moderate in the fall and the winter. That's typical seasonality. And since the 49-year average is so close to zero during those months, it's a 0.10%. That also means it's not unusual for home prices to drop ever so slightly during those times. But those are just blips in the radar. If you look at the year as a whole, home prices still rose overall. Here's what you really need to know. Headlines are going to call attention to the small month-to-month dips instead of that big picture, longer term look at the market. And that's misleading because it's only focused on one part of the whole story. So instead, let's remember, last year we saw the return of seasonality in the housing market, and that was a good thing. After home prices had skyrocketed unsustainably during those unicorn years of the pandemic. And just in case you're still worried whether or not home prices are going to fall this year, don't be. The expectation for this year is that prices will continue to appreciate as buyers re-enter the market due to mortgage rates trending down compared to last year. As buyer demand goes up and more people move at the same time of the supply still being low, the upward pressure on prices will continue. Bottom line, don't let home price headlines confuse you. Data taken out of context can be made to look whatever way someone wants it to. And when it comes to headlines, negative or dramatic ones get the clicks. So there's that. Looking at the big picture, the data actually shows that, as a whole, home prices rose in 2023. If you ever have any questions about what you're hearing in the news or what's happening with home prices in our greater Philadelphia market, let's connect. I hope that helps.